Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the beautiful island of St. Bart's. And today we have a very special guest, lighting designer extraordinaire Justin Townsend.
Coming to you direct from New York on my birthday, this is Dennis. What could be a better birthday present than an hour with Justin Townsend? And if you haven't heard, you are listening to Light Talk. And we are the Lumen Brothers
and Sister.
That's right, Ellen.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 447. That's right, our guest today is Justin Townsend. Justin, welcome to Light Talk.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to be here after all this time.
Now, I hear a rumor, I think you're the one spreading it, that you're teaching hand drafting today in ML's class?
I feel so lucky. Yeah, it's totally amazing. So ML Geiger is on sabbatical here at NYU, where I'm the chair of graduate design for stage and film. And part of my coverage is covering her class. And I said to ML, I really want to teach your class your way to sort of learn what the nougat is, what the special ML Geiger sauce is about NYU training. And part of the joy has been really rolling out the trace paper and understanding the real physics of light and studying cones and how that interacts with space and how to get that back into our students' minds and brains as they're thinking about what great images are.
Oh, wow. This sounds like this is going to be great today. Let's just jump right in. Dennis, can you tell us a little bit about Justin?
I'd love to. I'm still trying to process that Justin, who has 4 million Tony Awards, is actually teaching drafting. What a hands-on guy. I love that. Anyway, Justin Townsend is an international lighting designer for performance. Recent Broadway lighting designs include Just in Time, Death Becomes Her, Once Upon a Mattress, Here Lies Love, and Moulin Rouge, the musical, for which he won the Tony Award, Drama Desk Award, and the Outer Critics Circle Awards. A 5-time Tony nominee and 4-time Drama Desk winner, other work includes Jagged Little Pill, American Psycho, The Humans, Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, and Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, and most recently a new piece, Slack Tide, with Twyla Tharp. As a creative director, Justin has collaborated with Grammy-winning recording artist Drake. This last year, he created 2 immersive lighting installations on Brooklyn Museum's Solid Gold exhibit and is now designing Lincoln Center's LCT3 comedy series. Justin's off-Broadway work includes Viet Gong, Mr. Burns, a post-electric play, The Odyssey, and A Winter's Tale as part of Public Works. Favorite regional experiences and connections include Playmakers Rep, Oregon Shakespeare Festival, the Guthrie, and American Repertory Theater. Justin is also a father to 2 children and a husband to the brilliant director, Elena Aras. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He is the chair of the Department of Design for Stage and Film at the Tisch School of the Arts at NYU. It's wow. All you can say is wow. Justin, did I pronounce your wife's name right?
Elena Araus, a house, she says. Yeah, absolutely.
And how many jokes have you been through about Just in Time?
You know, the brilliant thing about Just in Time, besides growing up with the name Justin, is and having adults, sing loudly to this small, poor child, Just in Time, was that I went into the rehearsal room and they looked over me and said, "Oh, Justin, have you noticed your wall?" And there on the wall are all pictures of different Justins. And next to my head is a picture of the herb Time. So they had a big giant headshot of me and a picture of the herb Time. And that was the Just in Time world.
That's very funny.
Yeah.
It must be amazing working with Jonathan Groff on that piece.
Jonathan, this is no surprise to anyone, is such a generous, kind, ferocious, thrilling performer. This is the stuff of dreams to work with these, we get to work with actors as designers, and working with Jonathan is another special person who just loves being in the theater. And
Right.
like so many of us, just joining that energy and just making the best thing we can do. And he's insatiable and hungry. And boy, the audiences just love watching him. It's so special to work with him.
Did you see on one of the No Kings Day marches, somebody had a big sign that said, "The only king I want is Jonathan Groff."
Yeah. And a special nod to Hamilton, I thought, in that was, that performance was, he didn't stop for however many years. And
Right.
again, now he's our king. Yeah.
Yeah, he is amazing.
Is it still running?
Just in Time is still running. Yeah, we're doing very well. We just actually had our best week 2 weeks ago. The last week was the best week to date. So we just, again, everyone wants to come and see it. It's playing in Circle in the Square. So it's, you get a chance to be fully in the world with him. And I love doing, I came up, I mentioned it earlier in Playmakers Rep, in a thrust space. And in the thrust space, what's so special about this show is what seems like a biopic is actually about what it means to be in the theater. What does it mean to be in performance? How do we share that with each other? And Jonathan does that. And so part of the joys there is being in that very relatively small 750-seat house where we share it every night, just come together and be in live performance and hear the songs.
I saw the performance that was done from the show on, I think it was The Tonight Show did it. And I love Bobby Darin's music, and that piece was so spectacular, and Jonathan was so wonderful. It's right on the top of my list of shows to go see. It's really, really beautiful.
Yeah, you got to come down and the clothes, everything. It's just aces and Derek's space. It doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop.
What did you do lighting wise to take us back to that era?
Part of the thing I love about Alex Timbers is how smart he is about modern pop culture and how do you have the sort of flavor of the period. I think a lot of the color I'm trying to do is vintage-ish, right? So it's not about saying how do we recreate what they did then, but how do we have the vibe and energy of something that feels spectacular as if it were reimagined for this moment from those value sets. Right, to see those beautiful teals, beautiful yellows, the soft greens, and have it the sort of has a big bold quality about it that also, so it lives both in the now and then moment.
It's funny because Jonathan said the same thing about the performance. Like he wasn't going to try to be Bobby Darin; he was going to put his spin on the music, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so successful.
It's so true, and that's what's great is because you get the energy of it, or that's always really enjoyable to me.
So, can you talk a little about your longtime collaboration with Alex Timbers and pushing boundaries? Like some of the stuff that you've done with him is so out there, scenically, directorially, lighting wise, and I guess it's an ongoing love affair.
I feel so lucky. I came up in a very special time in New York City when there was a big off-Broadway scene happening, and I had just made a show with another rising director, Lear de Bessonet, who now is the new Lincoln Center artistic director that Alex saw. And so Alex said, oh, maybe that guy could do my lights for a piece called Dance Dance Revolution. And so in Dance Dance Revolution, somehow Alex convinced 70 other dancers to show up in the old Ohio Theater and pack us all in with some of the best off-Broadway comedians and tell this bizarre script of what if aliens came down and the youth revolted through dance, right? And so it's big, giant, over the top in the spirit of the play, and so it needed to be that in the lighting. And so I went out and I bought all these Home Depot lights and filled up my car in the trunk and stacked as much equipment as I could get in the room, fluorescent tubes, anything that we could get that would make light, go into materials for the arts, anything we could do that would make more spectacular stuff. And so Danielle Worley did the set, an amazing space, and we stuck all of the Mini 10 little work lights into the risers. So it became a sort of stadium bank of lights, but in an off-Broadway version. And that impulse has been really sculptural. I love working with that sort of sculptural, big response of energy, of vibrancy. Alex is also a great sense of comedy. He has a real sense of what it means to entertain. And so he's playing in that sort of very political landscape, but also very pop culture at the same time. And that's why I think his work is so thrilling. And it really invites that conversation in with lighting. We're going to make Bad Boy over at the Encore's, at City Center as a part of the Encore's Gala.
Cool.
And we're going to make that in a day. We're going to make Bat Boy, this big, giant musical, in a day. And we're able to do that because we've had these conversations about style, about vibrancy, about color for many, many years now. And I feel very lucky.
Is this a revival of the show from like 25 years ago?
Oh, my God. It's amazing. I can't wait for y'all to see it. It's
Wow.
so funny and so fresh. And I was reading it. I was like, oh, no, are you sure this is going to? And I watched some of the rehearsal, and you won't believe how funny, how smart, how of the moment it is. And it just plays, and it's that's of course a lot of Alex Timbers, but also the material too. That just is it's just great to go in the theater and laugh, and also have some big ideas at play.
Now I'm guessing for the Bat Boy, your equipment is a lot more different and a lot more advanced than the Home Depot equipment you used, however many years ago that was. When was that the great Justin Townsend was lighting a show with Home Depot lights?
I mean, if they would still sell me those lights, I'd still use them. One of the things I'm doing for Bat Boy is using a bunch of old Par 64s pointed out of the audience as a blinder effect event, in a way that only Par 64s feel like that. And Bat Boy needs, I think that play needs a sort of punk or off-center quality about it. Like, it doesn't want to feel digital in my mind. It wants to feel handmade in a way that Tungsten, I think, if only to we insiders, the Light Talk family, could understand. But I think everyone gets and feels that way of what the energy of tungsten, of handmade, focused lights, as opposed to a bunch of digital things that are movers.
Right.
And of course, there's going to be a ton of moving lights and all the other gear that we need to let an Alex Timbers musical right now, which will be a blast. Brad Gray was a longtime programmer and colleague of mine who I just wouldn't have a career I had without the great artistic conversations that he and I have had as a programmer. We have a great conversation about how to move quickly, how to move in response to the directing team, and how to make really bold stuff very quickly. So it's going to be a great time. Really looking forward to that.
Did you collaborate with Jake Pinholster too on some of those early pieces?
Yeah, Jake definitely did Dance Dance Revolution.
And Boozy.
And Boozy, I wasn't a part of Boozy. That was one of my great jealousy. Boozy.
Okay.
Oh gosh, if only I could have been a part of that. Huh. It all worked out.
And what about Here Lies Love? I mean, talk about unusual.
So Here Lies Love is a super special piece to me, both as a sort of, again, this is Alex Timbers doing what he does in such an amazing way, where there's a political point of view, but also a sort of sugary shell to it that's really accessible, I think. And having a piece that was a dance piece, that was a disco piece, that was talking about fascism and Imelda Marcos and what happened in the Philippines in that moment, and really allowing an audience to have a sort of head-wrenching moment and transformation of who we falling in love with the sort of girl next door, and then watching her turn into an oppressive dictator, really. And Alex, and so we did that space first at the Public years ago, first up at Mass Mocha as a workshop with an amazing, and the amazing lighting designer Yi Zhao helped make that then. And then we brought it to New York, where we made it at the Public Theater. And that is an immersive dance piece that happens 360 around the audience. And then to finally move it to the Broadway Theater last year before, and tear out the orchestra seats, put in an entire grid over the whole orchestra, a couple hundred moving lights, and then tell the story there and make a disco happen in the Broadway Theater was a pretty remarkable, gutsy thing to do. I feel really proud to be a part of that.
I only saw it at the Public. I can only imagine bringing it to a Broadway theater. We brought the Broadway lighting master classes one year, remember?
Yeah. And what was neat about teching it in the Broadway was actually having to sit way up in the mezz because we knew the show worked in the dance floor. And so in some ways, the tech of that made sense. But the hard part was sitting up and letting the audience in the back of in the audience, so the proper seats, actually have a great show too, and learning how to make that. So how do you make a dance party that people can watch and still enjoy?
Can I ask, this is sort of a rhetorical question, I guess, but his work is so out there, and like Hamilton is so out there. Why is it that so many other directors are stuck in the 60s when it comes to directing Broadway shows?
I don't know about anyone stuck anywhere. I feel very lucky to work with lots of great folks who are Rupert Gould, Lear de Bessonet, so many folks who are really able to sort of pivot and make new things, and I see a lot of real future about what can be and could be in the world. I especially most recently with it just keeps coming.
Right.
I guess I feel a little excited about what could
Well,
be.
that's good. I'm glad to hear that.
I just want to change the subject entirely to a young Justin Townsend. And how on earth did you get bit by the theater bug that obviously has infected you so much to have a 25-year-old career that you've had? It's 25 years, I believe it is, with over 250 shows. What was it? What was your background? What was the education that brought you to where you are today?
I think first and foremost for me, theater was a place I could belong. It was a place where I could go and sort of feel as an outsider that like, oh, I can be here. I can be a performer. I don't really know. I can go and be a part of a crew. I can help. I'm needed. And so,
How old were
I
you?
mean, that was probably high school age,
Okay.
right? I remember sort of not figuring out what was going on, but I felt very lucky at looking back. My mother was always bringing me to shows, so I saw a lot of early. It was always seeing shows. My mother had Forbidden Broadway on a cassette tape in the car that we would listen to, and I sort of didn't understand at all what was happening because I didn't know what was being forbidden to know what was funny about these things. But she thought that was amazing. I grew up with opera in the house. There was always opera being played in the background. My mother was a painter. I'd like to, one of the things that's been really amazing, again, looking backwards, is my mother was a fine artist. She passed when I was young. My father is an engineer, and my stepmother now works in finance. And so that triangle feels like perfectly exactly what lighting design is, or at least how I experience it. And so I tried to, when I went to college, my father tried to help me out by telling me that maybe we shouldn't be involved in lighting because that wouldn't really be a career. That's not a career that one could have, he believed. And so we went to go find out all the other things I could do. Maybe I could be a French major, that bring in the money through that, I guess, or biology. Anyway, in a way that you, like when you're 17, who knows what you're going to do. And so I felt really lucky that I was sort of toured around, but I always knew to look at the places where the theaters were. And I spent a couple of years trying not to do theater until I had a chance to work at UMass Amherst. And wow, what an amazing place. I ended up going there because as a state school, I could afford to be there. I love the energy of the place. And then I did everything I could do to not be involved in theater. And then, again, just went back to that place of feeling like, oh, I belong here. I have a place here. I can participate. I worked in electrics. I took a lighting design class with the amazing Penny Remsen, who became a big mentor of mine. And many other lighting designers, Jane Cox, Ben Stanton, Matthew Richards, just to name a few of many voices who came up from that moment in time. And I just got to play in that way that lighting design is a chance to use the problem solving, the opportunity to gather, to help out on a team, to be an artist, and I just love the long hours. I love the head scratching problems, and also I love the joy of storytelling, of how to get away with something, of what can you do? Wouldn't it be neat if? And that what if is sort of built a career on.
It's amazing. I just love your energy. I just love it. But having had the education you have, especially being mentored by Penny Remsen, is that what led to you wanting to be an educator yourself and having taught at several different institutions, academic institutions, while maintaining an incredible professional career?
It's been really symbiotic for me the whole time. And so is teaching. I used to when I worked at UMass Amherst, I worked at the Fine Arts Center. And there was an amazing electrician there named Jerry, head of electrics. And he would internally to his speaking to people who were coming from all over the state to come and work and earn a few bucks. He'd say, "Would you hand me the 6x9? That's the shorter one over there than the longer one, which is called a 6x12." And he built his way of speaking in a way that was gently telling everyone to learn more. That offering was a big part of that we all could know this, and that we all were going to be great teammates in each other. I also taught sailing when I was growing up. I had the opportunity just to as a 16-year-old, they put me in charge of like 12 boats and a motorboat and said like, teach sailing. And I had no idea how to teach. And so I went over to another sailing camp. I was like, how do you teach? And they told me a little bit. And, I tried my best to teach sailing in that time. But it's a similar thing where it's learning something that you love and how do you share it with somebody else. And what I love about teaching, or what I hope to share, is there's a way of copying me. And then what I hope to do is say, here are the problems that I've learned and here are my solutions. How might you think about what your problems are and what your solutions are? And sure, you can steal from me about these solutions, but I wonder if my problems or concerns or interests are the same as yours. And so that sort of signpost has been really helpful for me as a career signpost, as just a curiosity of what are we doing. And Eric N., this professor of mine I met out at CalArts, used to say, like, theater is what you can get away with on stage. And I love that idea. Like, what can we get away with? And what would that mean? And what would stage mean? And how can we make something really, really special that we care about, that we want to share with everybody? And what does that get away with, I think, is what entertainment is. And so for me, being an educator has been allowing people into what has felt like a maybe inaccessible or boundary or walled off career, and how do we start to let people in and give access to many different voices, and education has allowed that to happen in a way that I think is really exciting.
How do you then you've been around for a while in education. How do you help that student find their voice? How do you help them get past their fears and their self-doubts? And they're their own worst enemy at times.
Oh man, I'm my own worst enemy at times. I think I think part of that is just announcing what's true. The idea of do I belong here? Is this enough? Am I enough? These are not new or foreign, new concepts, certainly to me. And I think I try and own that and share my experience in that and share that reality. And I think we can own that and we can achieve stuff, right? It's a yes and, as opposed to saying, no, you don't feel that way, or you'll get over that, kid. I never got over it. Why would they get over it? Maybe y'all have. But to really admit to that and share that, I think, is a core place. And then the other thing is, and this is some of the work that I'm doing here at NYU that's been really interesting me, and it goes back to some work at City Company. I went and I studied as an actor at City Company, not because I'm interested. City Company is a company that Ann Bogart ran for a while, that did some training in Saratoga, and they studied and they worked and trained in viewpoints and Suzuki methods. Those two acting training methods are not necessarily ones that I'm interested in doing as a performer necessarily, but I went there to go and learn how actors and makers are thinking, because I wanted to learn how to connect better as a designer to them. And so I think one of the things I'm doing at NYU, for example, is to talk about value sets that we have to, or that an offering I have is to say, what do we care about? What do you care about? Where is the common ground? What does the script seem to care about? What does our community care about? And then if we actually look at what all those things are, we may break certain patterns that we have, or we may reinvent them, or do the same thing we've always been doing. But we can do it knowing why we're doing them, and a real encouragement to understand what our traditions are and why, what does it mean to do musical theater now, and what do we like about it, and what don't we like about it? What Justin, they keep telling me to turn the front light on. So yeah, because they want accessibility. They want to see the people. So one of the values that you're working with those directors is they want to see people. If I went into Dennis I's work and I said, well, we don't need any front light here because I'm interested in shadow, I wouldn't work very long with Dennis. It just wouldn't, it's not the value set, right? And it's not to say it's a good artist or bad artist. It's like, no, you don't understand. That's not what we're doing here. We're interested in different, that his work is understanding an angle by degrees of, wow, do you see how he shifted it 4 degrees to the left? That's artistry. Because that's what a particular medium is interested in. And that's what I'm interested in empowering our students to identify is what they actually care about and what their colleagues care about and how they can attack those problems specifically and really point at them. And then let the problems be that they can't change or that people aren't interested in changing. Just do the thing we do, but then really hit the ones that we care about and really point at them. So that's my hope,
Excellent advice. I had read an interview with you about, I think it might have been in Playbill at one point when I was seeing a show, and you had said that you would give people the advice to stay dangerous.
I wish I could claim that as my own. It's such good advice. It's Doug Stein.
Okay.
Doug Stein.
I was going to ask you what you meant by that.
I can share what I think about it. And look, it's hard out. It's hard out, right? There's so many things that are challenging to be an artist or to be a working person in this field. One of them is, and we all have different ways of engaging in what's challenging for us. And what I like about Doug's advice, Doug is an amazing set designer who I studied with and worked in his studio for a little bit. And what I love about his advice is he's offering to us that earlier in our career, and probably as long as we can keep it, certainly a design value I have in my work, is how can we stay flexible and ready and able, right? So that we're not tied down initially by financial expectations, by career expectations or needs, so that we're able to pivot and make opportunities out of what that show up at our door. And certainly I think about that as a design opportunity, right? Like, how do we say, oh my God, there's a pile of 400 bar cans and no moving lights? Well, one is to complain about it and rent two moving lights or make an amazing show out of 400 bar cans. It's not necessarily what I wanted, but I've got to be ready to pivot into that moment. And I think Doug's advice also is not any new advice, certainly to the people in my circles right now, but that financial challenges are such that it can be very challenging to stay present and stay in this career. So how do we keep our overhead low? How do we keep our access easy? How do we stay engaged with the people around us so that we're able to do and act radically when the time presents itself?
Pivoting entirely in a different direction.
Just silence.
Well, I mean, it is so much.
That's really fascinating.
It is.
To me.
It really is. I mean, it's incredible advice.
I feel this is like a 2-part episode.
Oh,
yeah.
You're right, Steve.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you was, you came into my radar in my world about 10 years ago with a play called The Humans that my daughter had taken me to, and having grown up and been lived in Scranton, Pennsylvania, the play was incredible enough, and but I was astounded by the light and the quality of lighting on a box set with a ceiling and a second floor overhead. That it was just spectacular work. It garnered you the Drama Desk, and I think you had a Tony nomination for it as well.
I did, yeah.
But I noticed that you do a lot of musicals. At any given moment, the last couple of years, you've had 2 musicals running at the same time on Broadway. What's your preference, plays or musicals?
Oh, I just like making work that no one really understands. That's my favorite. If someone sort of says, Justin, we're hiring you because the toilet belongs over there, there's going to be a thing, and you're going to do that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I can be helpful. It's when we say, I don't know, can you do a 2-story set, and can you figure out how do we tell a ghost story that reveals itself slowly? Right? That's when it gets exciting, and we don't know the answer to that, and we have to make it up. And I think that goes back to that values work that I was talking about, because then we can understand, well, what are we actually trying to solve? Is this a ghost story? No, if the humans becomes too much of a ghost story too quickly, we lose that these are just people who are trying to figure out how to be good people in a very complicated moment in their lives. And so the light has to have a sort of porcelain reality to it that slowly sort of creates that mystery or weirdness or otherworldliness in a way that maybe even the audience doesn't know. And I love those problems. And so similarly with musicals, I love the idea of like, well, how does this thing float and become something uniquely bold and powerful and emotional and all those same ideas. They just have different rule sets, and it's that rule set or mathematics of what can you get away with in the human. Like, you're not going to put in big purple light in the humans. It doesn't make any sense. It's not the vocabulary, and learning what the vocabulary of each piece is part of the joy of theater making. Part of the joy of like just showing up to work is what is this thing? How are we going to make this thing? If I know what it is too much, that's when I get a little hesitant. So yeah, so I don't, I love them. I want to make more. I want to make more shows. The one thing I wish we would go home earlier so I could tuck my kids in at night. That's hard to be away. It's hard to be. I haven't figured out how to balance the long hours this job requires versus being present as much at home. I have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old, and they're amazing, brilliant, loving kids who I'm so proud of being their father.
One of my questions was going to be to ask, how on earth do you successfully do the work-life balance? Because I have failed many times over the years with it, and I'm always seeking advice, and I admire what you're able to do considering the scope of work and teaching and everything else you do. Give me advice, Justin.
Well, I want to center what you said earlier, which is the failed often, and certainly own my own failures. It has not been easy or something I've succeeded in all the time. And part of that like reckoning of like, slow down, what actually do I care about, and how do I do that and participate? So I feel really lucky to be able to slow down now, and it's a part of my career arc. Right? That I just want to own that it's easier for me to say I have to go home on Halloween and I can't tech on Halloween night because it's Halloween at this point in time in my career versus an earlier moment in my career. Maybe that would have been possible, but I didn't live a life where I thought that was possible. But now it's something that I really say, oh, sorry, there's like 3 Halloweens left for me. I can't miss them. I hope it works out for y'all. There's great ways to cover, and I'm sure that has impact on how I work. That's part of, I think, what I try and talk about my work here at NYU is what it means for me. I want to be able to show up for and be a husband and a father in a way that I think is that I can be proud of. And it is so hard to do that because there aren't a lot of folks who ahead of me who I can say, do it like that. That's the way to do it. Because it is so hard. These hours are so long. And I find that, my son needs me to go home and sit in the same room when he's doing his math homework, because math homework's hard to do by yourself. It'd be great if he could do it by himself, but he needs a teammate to just be there with him. And that's my experience right now. And I don't know how to do it any other way. So that probably means a few less shows right now. It does mean that sometimes at NYU, I'm not able to see all the shows we're doing here. I am having to go home early. And my hope is that bringing that conversation forward and talking about that is something that our industry can hold.
It's interesting you bring that up. The first person that I've heard mimic that is Polly Constable. And she talks about what it is to be a mother. And she has had her child on her hip in the early days and walked into the theater. And she would suggest that there are many people in the theater who are clutching their pearls, and there are other people in the theater cheering her on, going, that's what it is to be a human being. Of course they have a space here with you, or you have a space there at home with them.
Yeah, and I feel very lucky when my kids come with me. They don't really like it often. They like coming and running around the aisles. They like that part. But sitting in tech turns out to be not fun for them, too. That can be a little tedious. But I think showing up and talking about that is a big part of what just, again, our industry has just not had in my experience, talking about how do you say it? It's so hard, right? Because I want to figure out how to show up for my family and show up and be present. That's really hard to do, and do this thing that I love doing, and that needs all my time.
It's hard because with students, you do have to remind them that the theater doesn't love them. The theater will carry on long after they're gone.
It's a real truth, right? Everyone is replaceable. And you think, no, not everyone's replaceable. And it's like, nope, we're all replaceable. Yeah, no, we really all are. And that's challenging to remember. But some of my greatest lessons, I was struggling on a piece that I was having a tough time lighting, and someone years and years ago, and someone came in to show me how to light it. And boy, that was a really hard moment on the ego. But it turns out I learned a lot about lighting design in that moment too, because someone else came in to do that. So, how do we hold both is the hope.
So with Elena being a director, does she have hours too?
We are a working theater family, and Elena is an educator at Princeton University and also a working director. She directs opera. She makes new software. She is very active in the new work community, and so that's really hard for us. We're lucky. A big part of our income is making sure that there's stability in childcare so that we can do that. But we both have recognized that it's childcare isn't enough, that they really need presence of us and finding that balance. And so there certainly have been sacrifices made by Elena for me to be work or away. What does it mean for me to be away for a month and a half? Those are real experiences.
Has the opportunity presented itself at all for you and Elena to do a project together?
We love working together, although it's really hard because then we don't know who's minding the store. You know what I mean? So if we're both in tech, whoa, that's what happens. But we did this really neat thing. So this summer we went out, Elena was directing a piece at a new play festival in West Virginia. And so all of us went out to be a part of being there with her. So I got to be in residence as a dad while she was directing a play. And boy, that was challenging to have kids away in summer without summer camp in the middle of summer and went in a new home, but also a great way for us to be together and try and work it out. And that comes as a privilege of being at NYU where I'm not working in the summer. So a lot of things had to line up for that to be possible, but it was really great.
Let me ask you a question. I was looking at your bio here. What exactly is a creative director for Drake?
So a couple of things. I had some opportunities to work on. There was a concert that wasn't going that needed some enhancement, and so I had a chance to enhance a concert a world tour of his. And then, and that involved actually reconfiguring and redesigning some of the physical structures. So it's not just where the side light goes, but also reconceiving what the event was. And then also he did some upfront work that I had an opportunity to design with him as well, which is sort of blank slate. What could we do? Wouldn't it be amazing if? And looking at fine art installations and translating fine art installations and activating them in a lighting way, making a big giant series of plexiglass walls that all had LED tape surrounded by them. And then saying, oh, wouldn't it be great if we did an upfront where Drake had no front light, he was only top lit, that would be so aggressive and real and fun to do it that way, as opposed to here he is, here's your guy. So those ideas start to be in the land of directing visually. And I think that, great lighting design work is very much about that.
A lot of times people will ask me, what was your favorite project? What was your favorite show? It's always something that's difficult to ask, so I'm not going to phrase it that way to you. But,
I was going to say, what's yours?
Well, at this point, I'm old enough to be able to say that, and I don't really care who I piss off. So, but I know that you have to toe the line, shall we say? What I'm going to ask you is, of all the shows you've done, which is the one so far that you found the most challenging, that you've been able to learn the most from and grow the most from?
I think my growth and learning, both emotionally, personally, and also career-wise, with Moulin Rouge, and learning how set electrics worked, how to scale, how to work with amazing electricians like Jeremy Wallers, how to make great relationships. That was a beginning of a really deepening of my relationship with Brad Gray. Making a multi-million-dollar international worldwide hit is different than 48 dimmers in a basement.
That's for sure.
But sometimes the reward in the 48 dimmers in the basement could be higher.
Yeah. And I think learning how to do that was really, I was trained, I felt so lucky to study with Chris Ackerland, who really was working with lighting artists, and he certainly did big light plots and so forth at CalArts. But the real goal was, what is amazing? What could we do? What if? How could that reflect your ideas, your thinking about light? And I've really chased that as opposed to a career in Broadway or anywhere else. And because I wasn't chasing the career, I didn't learn a lot of the ways you're supposed to do things, for better or for worse. But in the situation where you're scaling or repeating something like Moulin Rouge, it needs to travel around the world and be translatable. It needs to be repeatable 8 shows a week for 6 years. This is a different thing than, can you put a little black tack over that thing and tip it up a pinch and lock it down? The magic has to actually have a different value set. And learning that scale of how to work with a large team, learning how to work with that much money smartly, learning how to be an ally for the producers, learning how to be nimble in those creative environments to make the biggest, boldest ideas possible, and continue to shift that to match what the show needed. I feel really. I learned so much in that ramp up. And then, of course, during COVID, that happened over COVID. So I was working with the amazing Nick Solium, who went down to Australia to put in the show in Australia for that tour. And I was teching at 4 a.m. on a ClearCom on my 3rd floor, working with him about the compromises we needed to make for that tour in that country. So the scale and scope of all those experiences and all those lives changed by that amazing piece, I feel so very lucky to be a part of. And it continues. There's more and more, like how language works and how we see it translate to different places. It's about light, but it's about how this ephemeral thing we do, this theater making, can translate around the world in a way. Again, I'm just a guy who wanted to work off Broadway and like get away with putting some Home Depot lights underneath the steps. You know what I mean? Like, it's just been amazing to scale from there.
With as far as you've come, if you look back in your career, at this point, what would you tell a young 25-year-old Justin Townsend? What would you tell him not to do that you found got in your way?
Well, I hope there's no young Justin Townsend out there, first of all, because it's never going to work. We can only do what we did at the time, right? Like, and I really worry about what, like, my perception of what off-Broadway is now and then is completely different. It's just a different world. This is an industry built on cheap labor and cheap materials, and none of that is true anymore. And so the designers of today need to understand that, okay, the lessons they have is like, yeah, we can all get there and do it, and we'll all raise the barn and make the thing. But it turns out barn raising is really expensive unless we all volunteer, right? So, okay, so how can we use what we know to be true, not what we've inherited to be true, to make the great, amazing things possible, and to not be afraid of letting go of perhaps different generations of values, or you can't use a rep plot to make something beautiful, or you have to use this or whatever, again, to say, what can you do that's truly amazing that you want to explore and practice? And that's the thing that I would really continue to encourage. And then also the thing I keep saying, and I don't know how to balance, and this was very hard for me, is this lesson that we're talking about earlier about family, which is to say, where and how do we square being in a human being in the world versus a human being that makes events or mixed theater, and that the time commitment that this thing takes, it can destroy things. And so to be very careful about the hour and aware that this great thing that we do that I love, that again came from this idea of where do I belong, can remove some of where we also need to belong, and to recognize that, and to continue to be thoughtful about how we engage ourselves in the world, knowing that.
Ellen, I think you have our last question for the day.
I do. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the panel you're going to do at LDI, intriguingly called Secrets You Could Die For.
Oh my God. So I'm so excited. We're going to Las Vegas.
Yay!
I hope we see you in Las Vegas, Ellen.
You'll see us all in Las Vegas.
That's great. So look, I made this production called Death Becomes Her, and it's a very special piece. But one of the things that happened is we worked extremely fast as a lighting team. The automation continues to be a challenge, not because of anyone's fault, but just that it takes a long time to reset and to program and to deal with. And we don't always know what's happening. And so what I really do at the tech table is empower my team to work alongside of me as fast as we all can. And so what I'm excited about this panel is what I'm trying to share is I inherited, maybe no one else does this, but I inherited a tradition that was the lighting designer did all of the thinking and the acting, and it sort of trickled down from there. And what I'm pointing at is how does the associate, myself, the assistant, the programmer, what are the tools that we use so that we're all working as fast as we can to make the show better and more complex and more detailed in the way I outline as a lighting designer, so that I'm leading a team who's all working and together to make something, as opposed to everyone's waiting for my leadership to tell them what to do. And we're breaking down some of the software we're using. So it's a very nuts and bolts. So you kind of, here's why we're using this. Here's how it's doing. But it's also, I think, a value shift of saying, here's why I empower Nick Solium, the amazing lighting associate, to do this work with the stage manager. Here's why I'm allowing my programmer to take these steps forward and how we're working in tandem. And then Colleen Doherty, who I think was on here very recently,
Yes.
Amazing Colleen Doherty, how do I use her eye as a lighting designer to help me move along quickly? So, and I don't find that threatening. I find that really critical that I have essentially 4 lighting designers on my team, that I'm trying to empower them and get them to sprint as fast alongside with me, so that we're all working towards making and fulfilling the director's vision all together.
And you're helping train the next generation at the same time.
Yeah, well, and who knows what it'll bring, and it allows us all to figure out, like, again, what's amazing. Wouldn't it be great if, and to really empower those creative discoveries.
Right. Amazing. Well, I can't wait to see you in Las Vegas.
That's on Monday, right?
Yep, Monday afternoon.
Ah, perfect.
I will be there.
Oh, that's
Good.
fun. Oh, it'll be nice to see you.
Yes, indeed. If you're there on Sunday, you should come to our Light Talk. We're going to record and broadcast Light Talk live on Sunday at 12:30.
Oh, I can't wait to come. I'm definitely coming. I think I just got an email about mentorship. I'm looking forward to being a mentor there, and
Great.
if I can, one of the real important things to me, especially my work at NYU, is as much as we can to really help the next generation of lighting designers or any designer, really. And part of our belief here is to really help support, because I don't need to sell the joint I work at. It's a good school, but we're really interested in learning how we can help other folks figure out where they need to go and provide that conversation.
I just love your attitude. I have to say that.
If I can do a little promo for LDI, if people want to come and get a free Expo Hall pass, which also gets you into Light Talk, you can use the promo code Light Talk, all one word. And if you want to go to Justin's session, you need a LD Innovation Conference badge, and you can use the promo code Speaker25 for a 20% discount on said badge. So take advantage, guys.
What do you mean? Can you clarify that? If you want to go to Justin's session,
Wow.
Of course you want to go to Justin's session. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It has been eye-opening.
It was great. It was great. You should come back again soon.
I feel really lucky to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Well, the rocking sound of the Luminoids once again tell us that you have spent another Saturday morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. That way you'll not miss a second of Light Talk insanity. No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, you will have to deal with me, Snoot from the Snoot Group. And don't get it twisted. Just because I married one of these losers does not mean I will go easy on you. So don't fuck with me.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers
And Sister.
coming to you from the island of St. Bart's, the Lone Star State, and New York, New York.
whoa, that's a first. I mean, we now have a Light Talk brother in waiting there. Thank you again, Justin, and be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
We'll see you all next Saturday morning. Thank you, Justin. Bye-bye from Light Talk.